evening, everyone. I'd like to call this instructional committee meeting to order. It's 7:07. All right. Acceptance of meeting minutes. Instructional committee meeting minutes of April 3rd, 2017.
Yes.
Mikey?
Yes.
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 And yes.
Oh.
Next, policy and possible consensus. A, proposed adoption of revised policy 4118.112, sexual harassment.
Okay, sexual harassment had to be updated based on another policy that's on your agenda for this evening. With the introduction of new policy for section 504, it references both sexual harassment for staff and students as well as non-discrimination, which is coming up next week. So it warranted a review of those existing policies, which are about 20 years old, so they needed to be updated. So when you look at the sexual harassment personnel one, which was first, A, there is a policy and regulation that takes a person through what the definitions are of sexual harassment from a personnel end, what the reporting procedures are for both informal and formal complaints, and the process and timeline for both.
Any questions? Karen?
I have a couple comments. On 3A, the proposed policy revision, if we could just add in on the second paragraph, it indicates any employee who believes that he or she has been subjected to sexual harassment should report the alleged misconduct immediately. But if we could put in there to whom they should
Sure,
report
that is in the
to.
regulations to their immediate supervisor, but we can definitely add it in the policy.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So now I have a question. So what if the immediate supervisor is the one
That's in the regular.
harassing them?
That's in here.
It does speak to going to the next
Oh,
level
the
of
next level up,
management
okay.
in the regulation, which would be dependent on that person's position. Could be the Title IX, it could go to Title IX, it could go to the superintendent after that.
Excellent, thank you.
Mike, did you have a question or comment? No?
So the regulation, we're not making any changes to it, all the regulation is as from the original?
No,
Or
the regulation was
regulation.
revised, it's B.
Yes.
So there's
Oh,
A
it's
and
B,
B.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
yep, and I did see it, and I did read it before too, so I'm sorry, I just mixed up my papers.
Did you forget, Mrs. Costello?
No, we didn't go over this one, Mike, the other day, we didn't, the other meeting? Committee
We did at
meeting?
the first one.
The first meeting,
Yes.
that's right, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I'm confusing it with last week's meeting, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Oh, my God.
We understand.
Yeah,
So for
yeah.
policy and regulation, again, these were updates to existing policy. It updates it through CABE with current regulation.
Karen?
Okay, I do have a correction on page 2 of the regulation. Informal complaints, second paragraph, third sentence. The supervisor is to file a report. It says the with, I think it should be with the, just switch the words around. And on the third paragraph, third line, it should be if the complainant submits a formal complaint rather than it.
Any other questions or comments? Can I get a consensus of revised policy 4118.112, sexual harassment, with Karen's recommended changes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, with the regulation, yes.
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 And yes. Next, B, proposed adoption of revised regulation 4118.112A, sexual harassment.
Okay, these are the student version of sexual harassment, both in policy, which is labeled C, and regulation, which is labeled D. These are also updates to existing policy, as the last time those policies were revised was 1996.
Okay, so the B went.
But they're not separated on the agenda.
Okay.
C and D, I think, go together.
Sorry. just
That
one
makes
second.
sense.
Yeah. So A and B.
So it should
There's like two A's, one for personnel and one for teachers,
So do we have to do
students,
consensus on that one?
Right,
right?
yeah.
Yes.
So there's really two A's and two B's.
Well, no, there's
The student ones are
A and
labeled
B
C and
a
D.
Yeah, no, we already did consensus on this one, we already did this one.
Okay.
You said 511.
Just for clarification while we're waiting, the consensus that was just taken was not that it's gonna go to the consent agenda, it's just gonna go to the board meeting
Right.
under, instructional, so that then it could be discussed at that time. Then after that one, then it would go to consensus, the consent agenda. All right, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, that's
They're
true.
just informing.
It's just proposed, yeah, we don't need to, that's true. Because you're right, we're not taking consensus.
It's just the first
It's just the first
So we don't
So we need to do anything?
No.
All right, fine.
Okay.
Good.
The third reading,
Oh.
the third reading would be, you're right, the third reading, we would take consensus and then move it forward
Okay.
to be on our consent agenda, right?
No,
No?
that is the third
Okay.
reading.
Well, it's actually
Yeah.
the next board meeting, it'll be on May 22nd,
Second,
at which time
Oh,
you'll
the-
hear it,
okay.
and then you'll take consensus, and then
24th.
and then the next time in June at the board meeting, it'll be on the consent agenda for
Okay.
approval,
That's fine.
so.
So just for clarification, we don't have to take consensus on any of these. It's the first
No,
reading
because
for
it's the
everything.
first reading,
Okay.
so,
Right.
but it's, you didn't, there's no harm, I mean,
Okay.
you're moving it to the board meeting.
Sounds good. All right. On that note, C, propose adoption of revised policy 5145.5, exploitation, sexual harassment. And we'll do D together? Is that?
Yes, these
okay.
go together. One is the policy, which is labeled C. The other is the regulation labeled D. This is the first read for these. It is an update to previous policy, which again is necessitated by the next round of policies that we'll discuss.
Any questions or comments? Karen?
On the proposed policy revision, under definition, number 3, such as the display in the education's setting, perhaps that should be educational setting. And then in the regulation, 3D, item 3, it says suggestive or obscene letters, notes, invitations, derogatory comments, slurs, jokes, epithets, and assault, and I think it should be touching rather than toughing. And under number 5, second sentence, and/or learning environment of a student, so include a, and then number 6, inappropriate attention of a sexual nature. And on the reverse side, page 6, or number 6, first, number 4, second sentence, personnel will be provided a copy of this regulation. Then number 6, the word discreetly is the incorrect use of discreetly. That's the incorrect spelling of that particular, so we could correct that.
So I've got a question. Thank you very much, Kieran, for all those. Do we get the narrative directly from CABE, or, so that's a little troublesome to
Yes,
me
it is.
that, CABE has these issues, really, if we're getting it directly from them. Now, will you go back to CABE and let them know? Okay, yeah, thank you for that.
I appreciate the clarification,
Well,
but that
because
wasn't the work
thank
of
you.
our
I-
office staff, it was the work of
Right.
contracted staff, so we do
Right.
need to work to make sure that the contracted staff provide us with the cleanest copies possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any additional comments? All right. Next is E and F, proposed adoption of new policy 5145.4 and 5145.4A, Americans with Disabilities Act, Section 504.
Okay, so this policy is new. It is a change to the law, which upon further counsel, we received our policy guidelines. There is guidelines for students in terms of policy and in regulation. for ADA in section 504. So E is the policy, it's the first read. F is the regulation for students.
Karen?
Okay, I don't have a problem with E, but the regulation, letter
There is
F.
I'd like to put on the record, there is a sentence missing off the bottom, which is our error.
That would be,
Where it says, however, at any time, so it's the bottom of page 4,
right,
in the bold.
Karen caught it.
yes, I did.
Karen did catch it, yep.
Yes.
I
However,
did that on purpose, Karen.
I said, where is the rest of the sentence? Yes.
yes. So just for point of clarification and context for all of you, however, at any time, the complainant may request that Section 504 ADA coordinator submit the, and the missing text is complaint directly to an impartial hearing officer and request a hearing in accordance with the provisions of subsection D, which is below.
Okay.
So that will be added to it for your next read.
Okay. Unfortunately, that's not the only correction I have. In definitions on page 1, free appropriate public education, just, I think it's the fourth sentence, that are provided without cost except, instead of for fees imposed.
You want for instead of of.
I think that makes a little more sense. And then, on page 4, last sentence of number 7 at the top, student, I don't think it's supposed to be sub-paragraph, rather sub-paragraph. I think that's,
I have to like stuff.
okay, well, you can have that if you'd like it.
Got it?
Any
The other
other,
one.
any other comments or questions?
No, there was a wording issue, but I'll discuss that after, which came first or second with agreement, and I think that's more of a little clerical thing.
All right, next is G and H, proposed adoption of new policy 4118.11, Americans with Disabilities Act, section 504, and 4118.11A, Americans with Disabilities Act, section 504.
So this is along the same lines in terms of the law changing, and this policy and regulation is for our staff. So in terms of section 504, in any discrimination against individuals with a disability, this also encompasses both non-certified and certified personnel.
Dr. Menzo?
Just a quick question. Do we want to put the actual staff member's name in, or should we just put the position? Because would policy need to be revised every time? And not that we're looking for the person to leave, but
Yeah,
I'm just
good
wondering.
point.
It
Yeah.
did recommend from our attorney that we have the email, et cetera, so
Oh, so if
I
you
don't
do
know
that,
what
then
kind
it's-
of leeway
no,
that you need.
You covered it. You answered my
Email.
question.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're good.
Karen?
On the regulation, on page 3, again, the same correction, number 7, under letter F, instead of sub-paragraph. And then that also, at the end of at letter G on that page, if you look, outcome to the superintendent for review and reconsideration within 30, and then it goes to letter H, which is incorrect. It should be 30 calendar days,
Correct.
small c, and just continuing on from there.
Any other comments or questions? We should adjourn. Do we have any, that's good? Oh, okay. I'd like to call this,
Just adjourn.
I'd like to adjourn this meeting. Thank you.